For 2.5 months, he's sheltered in Saudi Arabia, but now Yemen's president says he will be coming home. The question is, how many people want Ali Abdullah Saleh back? With all the opposition, why will he still not relinquish power? And will things only get worse if he sets foot back in Sanaa? The return of a president. This is Inside Story. Hello there, I'm Kamal Santamaria. Yemen's been out of the spotlight recently, hasn't it? What with events in Syria and Libya dominating the region, and the fact that Yemen's president hasn't actually been in his own country for more than 2 months. But that apparently is about to change, because on the same day when at least 26 people were killed in Yemen, President Ali Abdullah Saleh chose to address his supporters.
God bless you all and see you soon in the capital, Sanaa.
Saleh, of course, still in Saudi Arabia, where he was treated for burns and injuries sustained in a rocket attack in June. In this latest speech, where he said he'd be coming home, he also attacked the opposition and the tribesmen who've sided with them, branding them highway robbers and opportunists. He told the youth of Yemen, don't join the opposition. He called them minor remnants of Marxists and secessionists and elements of the Taliban who want to take the country back to the days before its independence. But there was something of an olive branch in his address to the nation, an offer of elections to resolve the political crisis, but not before 2013 as the opposition wants, which really only gives strength to the theory that Saleh's return will be more damaging than it will be favourable for a peaceful future. So let's introduce our panel for today to discuss just what happens now for President Saleh and Yemen as a whole. In Washington, D.C., Christopher Swift, a fellow with the Center for National Security Law at the University of Virginia, also the author of a new book, which is called The Fighting Vanguard, Local Insurgencies in the Global Jihad. Then joining us from London, we've got Mohammed Kobati, an opposition activist and former Yemeni ambassador. And rounding out our panel from Kuwait for a Gulf perspective, we've got ABDULHADI ALAJMI, the board secretary of the Kuwait Historical Society. Gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining us on Inside Story. I'm going to start with Christopher Swift in Washington, D.C. When we look at President Saleh now, he sits in the group of the more defiant Arab leaders, I guess, compared to, say, Hosni Mubarak, Ben Ali in Tunisia, who comparatively went quite soon or quite quickly. But he almost seems to go a step further, Saleh. He seems to be provocative, almost provoking his people even more when he knows there's that much opposition to him.
Well, one of the things you need to understand here, Kamal, is that Saleh's recent speech is not necessarily for the Yemeni people, nor is it for the Yemeni opposition. It is, in fact, for his own base, for the General Congress Party and for the leaders and decision makers within the intelligence and security apparatus. So when we're looking at how President Saleh is interacting through his speeches from Saudi Arabia and in his relationship to the crisis, we have to understand that his first priority is going to be consolidating his own base and showing that he is still in charge of that particular group. I think the more romantic his rhetoric becomes, the less control he will actually have. So
sort of ignoring the fact that there is all this opposition to him and just worrying about shoring up what's left of his support.
That's exactly right. And you have to understand this is a gentleman who has run his country through this particular apparatus, his party apparatus, but also through the security, military, and intelligence apparatus for well on 30 years. This is what has worked for him in the past. He thinks it will work for him in the future, and he's trying to show them that he is still relevant, he is still in charge, and that he is a decision maker that cannot be counted out.
Interested to get Mohammed Kobati's thoughts on this in London, what Christopher Swift has been saying, that essentially President Saleh isn't speaking to his own people anymore. Your view as a former Yemeni ambassador yourself?
I think the man lives up to his fame of being quite, a person who is dubious and untrustworthy, dishonest and unpredictable. People were expecting him to come out and speak about agreeing to the arrangements for giving up power and a transfer of power in exchange for immunity, which people have, promised him for. And instead of that, he intends to spread the fire. He has already burnt himself previously. He is now intending to burn Yemen, and perhaps even to spread the fire across the region and cause, push the whole of the region into the furnace. This is quite dangerous. The man is not only unpredictable, now he's becoming more and more dangerous, because anarchy in Yemen, it will push Yemen into disintegration, and this at large, I think, it doesn't only constitute a threat of stability and peace in the region, but I think worldwide.
ABDULHADI ALAJMI in Kuwait, let me bring you in. Do you agree with that perhaps as time is going on, President Saleh is potentially becoming more dangerous the more rhetoric he puts out like this?
Actually, it's obvious that my two friends puzzled with the way he talked. I see it from a different angle. I think it's more expected. It's not a weird type of talking. Actually, it's a natural way in order to gain more in the negotiation. This is a guy who everyone was talking about, taking him out of his seat and out of his country. And right now, he's already out for 2 months, and we still discuss the same thing. This is show that there is more than Ali Saleh himself, more than his position. Of course, it's the intelligence and all the military, but there is something more than that. There is a segment of the society, a segment can be counted as very powerful. In Yemen, still Ali Saleh represents something to them, or represent them in a way. But it's obvious that it's not Ali Saleh himself, which we're talking about right now. It's about the party that he's leaving behind him, the whole tribal segment that he represents in a way, or support him. So it's natural to talk this way in order to gain much in the negotiation. It's not easy to come to a negotiation with a weakness point. So if he came saying, I am in my weakest moment, please forgive me, or give me this or that, it will not be given to him.
I just
but
wonder,
by
Abdulhadi,
using this...
sorry to interrupt you, I just wonder also how much sense he's making, though, when you talk about the way he's talking. When he starts talking about remnants of Marxism and highway robbers and all these sorts of very emotive things, I wonder if he's starting to sound a bit desperate.
Of course, actually, reading deep, it's obvious he's desperate. But no, he showed certain strength. And he showed that he holds certain papers. When he talk about coming back to Yemen, he's saying, I can go for this choice. So I have something to bargain. I have something to talk about with the opposition. And so the negotiation is still in his hand. So this is a guy who's giving himself more strength in order to get a better deal. So the whole talk is in a search for a better deal. So everyone expects him to come without giving himself more of weight. I think that will not be the right way to do it for him.
Quick word from Mohammed Kubati before we go back to Christopher Swift. Mohammed, I just want to... I'm wondering, the central point of the speech was when he said, I'm coming home, I'll see you soon in Sanaa. How much of Yemeni society, regardless of who he's speaking to, how much of Yemeni society would actually want to see him come back now that we are, what, seven months into this unrest in Yemen?
I think the majority of the people believe that his comeback means it's going to completely turn the country into hell. We have heard, the paramount sheikh of Hashed, Sheikh Al-Ahmar, saying that he will never allow at all in his life for Ali Abdullah Saleh to rule him again or his family. It means that he is aiming at instigating a new round of war. This could push the whole country into civil war. My friend in Kuwait is speaking about negotiations. Negotiations have been finished a long time ago. As Victoria Noland was speaking last night, when they asked her about this, she said, I'm surprised. The man, we expected him to sign the initiative and to agree to the negotiations which have gone over for the past, 5 months. Instead of that, if he can walk and if he can show all of these, maneuvers and ploys, why doesn't he sign the agreement, the initiative which has been actually brokered by our friends, by our brothers in the GCC, and it has had a lot of backing from all across the world. So the man is, I don't know if he is actually actually in his mind, he can't see what's happening in Egypt. The previous president was just facing prosecution. Al-Qaddafi now, we have heard that he's arranging his flight from the country, and Assad is facing all that turmoil. Is he in his mind to speak about going back to Yemen? Whatever his intentions are, I think the man just wants to tell the world he doesn't care. He wants to push Yemen into fire, anarchy, and to push the whole region into a state of destabilization.
Okay, one more point to talk about from his speech before we move on, and I sort of mentioned it earlier. It was this olive branch, which he did seem to extend, an offer to head to the ballot box to try to put an end to the impasse. Just have a quick listen to what President Saleh said on that.
Come with us to the ballot boxes. Every democratic country in the world passes by this crisis. These crises happen everywhere. The opposition asks for early election, but they demand the establishment of a national council, a presidential council, and a military council, and to correct the past. But we have legitimacy until 2013.
Christopher Swift, I said an olive branch. It's more a promise or an offer of an olive branch for later, because he says we're still here till 2013, and that's never going to change.
Yeah, no, that's right. And we've seen this before in his negotiations with the Joint Meetings Party and the protest movement in previous months, where he makes issues a series of ultimatums, a series of declarations, and then offers one or two things that he's willing to compromise on for the sake of either drawing them into a negotiation or appearing to be willing to negotiate. The fact of the matter is that we haven't seen any of those promises turn into something that's been concrete in terms of internal political reform, in terms of political pluralism, and never mind the social and economic reforms that many of the protesters in Sanaa and other Yemeni cities truly desire. Part of the reason why this is happening is because the state in Yemen and the society in Yemen are really operating on different wavelengths. One of the things I wanted to say earlier is, Saleh is of this particular mold of Arab nationalist leaders that came out, in the mid to late 20th century. They tend to be secular. They tend to be very hierarchical in their approach. Yemeni society is highly tribal, highly decentralized. There's a lot of shared power rather than consolidated power. And the difficulties we're seeing in Yemen right now are, one, the failure of the Yemeni state, the centralized Arab nationalist state, but two, the failure of a highly decentralized Yemeni society to put up an alternative that can take the place of that strong state that's existed for the last 30 years. This is why we're not seeing the kind of momentum in Yemen that we've seen in some of the other Arab countries that have undergone transformative change in the last 3 to 6 months. And it's also why some of President Saleh's statements can be seen as so inflammatory and destabilizing.
ABDULHADI ALAJMI in Kuwait, what do you make of what Christopher Swift said just then? This brand of leader, as he calls it?
Actually, I agree with him totally in the sense that the failure to have a state, because this is one thing unique about the Yemen. When we talk about Ali Saleh, this is another issue we're talking about. Is the issue is Ali Saleh or the people who support Ali Saleh? Because Ali Saleh is out of Yemen right now. It's 2 months being outside of Yemen. If this scenario was with bin Ali, since the moment he left, the whole system collapsed. Mubarak, if he left, the whole system will collapse. The same with Assad. Everyone leave the country, he will lose the whole legitimacy, or not even legitimacy, the whole control of the state. This is a guy who's been 2 months outside Yemen, and he's still the issue, and people are negotiating. For my friend Muhammad, when he said that the negotiation already done, then what are we talking about? He's out of Yemen. But I think we are talking about a group behind this guy who really represents something. Anyway, this is a type of dictatorship that really risk everything to keep the position. And what we should think about it when he bring out the issue of coming back to Yemen, is he serious about that? I doubt it for myself. But if he's negotiating, if this is part of the negotiation, for whom is he negotiating? For his sons, maybe. To stay in Yemen, maybe. But I think it's for the group that he represents, the tribal segment he represents, the whole tribal alliance with him, military forces, whatever people who Ali Saleh represent. And I thought that when he his capacity to gather certain people to support him, that was obvious. Even the meeting that he was talking to show a certain number of people. So we cannot ignore this fact that there is certain segment of the society really support Ali and think he's legitimate, not only by show, but he's acting as legitimate. He's still the one who's running the show in a way. So let's talk seriously about this type of dictatorship in the mind of the Yemenis, those who are loyal to Ali Saleh. Who are they thinking to replace him? If they don't accept the opposition, who's among the ruling? Of course not the vice president, who's right now, legally he's acting as the president, but for them it's not him. Who is it?
Well, let's put it to Mohammed Kobati, because I think Abdulhadi's made a very, very good point there. The fact that in other countries, in Tunisia and Egypt, the man fell and the whole regime fell. In this case, Mohammed Kobati, it hasn't happened. Are we almost placing too much emphasis on the man himself?
No, the structures of power in Yemen for many reasons and obvious reasons is quite different. You know, in Yemen you have got the man has left the country. Who is ruling now? Is it the vice president? According to the constitution, it should have been the vice president who should be calling the shots now in Yemen. Who is calling the shots? It's his son, his nephews, and his brothers and half-brothers. Those are the people who are in charge. It's just similar. We know this is the same sort of system which was in Iraq. You've got a man who is controlling all sectors of power, you know, the security, the army, all different institutions in the country, even at the airline are controlled by his family. So it's a different case completely from that of Tunisia and of Egypt. Yes, I agree to that. It's similar to even I think the situation in Syria is not as as it is in Yemen. There we have got a family, a clan, a group of people who are controlling the whole sectors and whole different departments and pivots of the power. Yes, I agree to that. Yes, but the whole question is, it was a negotiation that he was going, and immunity was not going to be given to him alone. When he was negotiating with the opposition, he presented a list of nearly 600 people who were going to leave the country and who were going to be offered immunity. So it's different from Egypt, and yes, I agree to that. But trying to show that he has got any power within the people, no. He could, yes, I agree, he has managed to collect 100,000 people or 50,000 people. He pays them. But those people are only in Sanaa, whereas the opposition, you could see it across 17 different or 18, more than 17 different provinces across the country. There are millions of people. Yes, he has been there for 33 years, and nobody could ignore that he can still now manage to collect 50,000 people or 100,000 people in any square or in any sort of a room or a hall, and then show in front of the world that he still manages some sort of constituency. But that constituency is quite very negligible.
Mohammed Kobati, let's just pause for a moment. In fact, all four of us even, let's pause and just reflect on the path that President Saleh himself has taken since the start of this year, because you've all brought in different ideas. I just want to bring it together, particularly for our viewers. If we go right back to February when the protests started and Saleh seemed to catch the mood of the people, he pledged not to extend his presidency past 2013 or to hand it over to his son. But then by March, he was talking about the possibility of civil war if the unrest continued. He imposed the state of emergency as well. After that, Saleh really started digging in. He vowed he would remain in office despite all of those calls, growing calls for him to go. And he wouldn't have gone anywhere really had it not been for that rocket attack on his presidential compound in June, which forced him to seek treatment in Saudi Arabia. He has been there ever since, appearing only on television, including this most recent broadcast where he promised to return to Yemen soon. So that gives us sort of a potted history of the flip-flopping, if you like, that he'd done. And the other thing, which we didn't mention in that sequence there, was the discussions with the GCC, the idea of transferring power. And a few of you have raised that. So let's start with Christopher Swift. First of all, is that dead in your opinion? The idea of negotiation, the idea of talking, is it completely dead? If he comes back to Yemen, if he doesn't come back to Yemen, whatever.
Well, the question is, who are you talking to, right? Because you have this situation in Yemen where the political establishment and the social power, the people in the streets, are so far away from one another. And because the institutional roles that they play are so very different, it's hard to say that negotiating with Saleh is ever going to satisfy the interests of the Joint Meetings Party or the Yemeni Socialist Party or any of the major tribal groupings that have now taken the opposition side. I think the more important thing to focus on is not necessarily how we get Saleh out, but how you create something that's going to deal with the current situation and help find a new equilibrium. Yes, there needs to be a legitimate, just, and hopefully peaceful exit for Saleh and those around him who are highly associated with the current regime. But at the same time, there needs to be steps towards a new equilibrium. And one of the problems with bilateral, multilateral diplomatic negotiations is that states do a really good job of talking to other states. Diplomats like to talk to other diplomats. You know, presidents like to talk to other presidents. But the situation in Yemen right now is a matter of social mobilization, not political institutions. And until and unless someone figures out a way to reach out to the society in Yemen, which has mobilized and which has legitimate grievances, you're not going to see long-term stability in Yemen. You may see a transition, you may see an edging out, but as long as we're focused exclusively on the Yemeni state, which is very centralized, and not on Yemeni society as well, which is very decentralized, our policy is always going to come up short.
ABDULHADI ALAJMI can give us a really good Gulf perspective here, because of course it was the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, which stepped in and almost got to that point of a power transfer deal, which Saleh walked away from in the end. Is there anything you think, ABDULHADI, which the GCC can do now, or is too much time and too much happened in that time?
Actually, it's very sophisticated, the whole issue. For the GCC, there is a main interest in stability in this region. Ali Saleh represents that stability, but in the same time, it's not acceptable anymore for the GCC country to support or to accept Ali Saleh as a system in this region, because the people have said it clearly, and I think the GCC cannot ignore that. Still, the initiative itself was put in where Ali Saleh controls certain issue. I think the initiative itself right now comes short, I think, or doesn't respond very much to strength of power right now. I think Ali Saleh's weight is much lesser than how it was when the initiative started first time. But still, I think even the opposition at that time did not accept certain part of the initiative. I mean, the opposition, the street, the youth, those who really stood for the whole thing, not the parties. But right now, I think the two sides are coming closer to accept the initiative. And I think the GCC position support the kingdom of holding Ali Saleh not to return to Yemen. I think this is very important. And I think the American go into this direction, not allowing Ali Saleh to come back to Yemen. But still, when we talk about Yemen without Ali Saleh, whom we are talking about it? Are we talking about the Houthis or Al-Qaeda? This is something not acceptable for the GCC. Or we're talking about a system that cannot hold and should be supported for long from the GCC countries, and also it's not easy to do. Or we're talking about something in between, where as the initiative talk about a time for transferring power and then election and go on for a peaceful transformation of government. This is very puzzling for the GCC. It's the GCCR hold to the initiative, and they're waiting a way out, but they are supporting very much in telling Ali Saleh they are not in favor of him back. They will not support him back, and again, but they wanna bet for those who represent Ali Saleh. I don't mean his sons or those who control the military, but the segment of the society, the tribal. And this is what I was talking with Muhammad about, and he did not answer about that.
Right, okay, well, let's quickly get Muhammad back in.
That support Ali Saleh in this issue.
Just quickly,
I don't mean his sons and his military side.
Okay, let's bring in Muhammad, because we are running out of time. We'll have to keep this brief, Muhammad, but final word to you.
Yes. I would like to remind my friend in Kuwait that the other, the party itself has signed the initiative. As if you can remember, the whole leadership of the party, the rest, apart from the president's clan, apart from the president, his sons and nephews, and his relatives, the rest of them have already signed the initiative and they have agreed to the initiative. The initiative does not at all throw away. It's an inclusive initiative. It will include everybody. There should be a formation of a national salvation government, and we should move later towards a national, comprehensive national dialogue, which will bring in everybody into play. The Southerners, the Houthis, the Iraq, the opposition outside the country. Everybody would be allowed to take part in that dialogue, and we're going to have a new constitution built on federalism and giving people share and ability to take initiative in running their own day-to-day day-to-day affairs. So actually, what we are speaking about is a certain group of people now, perhaps 100 or 200 people, who are controlling all different sectors of power in the country.
Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure having all of you on the show today to talk through this latest development in Yemen. I want to thank you all. Christopher Swift was in Washington, D.C., Mohammed Kubati in London, and ABDULHADI ALAJMI in Kuwait. And thank you, our viewers, for joining us for this edition of Inside Story. If you've got an idea for a future show or a comment on this one, shoot us an email. InsideStory@AlJazeera.net is our email address. From the whole team, it's goodbye for now.